Analysis. I'm joined here in the studio by Istanbul's very own Oubai Shahbandar, also TRT World's defence analyst. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio. What are your sources telling you about what's happening on the ground right now?
Look, we've seen fighting flare up, especially as the Free Syrian Army, backed by the Turkish Special Forces, briefly captured a strategic mountaintop, the Bursaya mountaintop. Is an area that overlooks the valley below it. It was also an area that the YPG, PKK terrorists were using to shell Azaz and to shell villages nearby. So that was a crucial battle. It's contested. It's going back and forth. But we're seeing now the point of contact where Free Syrian Army soldiers, backed by the Turkish Air Force and Turkish Special Forces, have engaged in the first skirmishes with the YPG terrorists. And we're also seeing 10 YPG terrorists were captured by the Free Syrian Army. By all reports, they are being well treated, and I think it's an important indicator here that we're probably going to see even further clashes in these important strategic high ground areas as the Free Syrian Army advances steadily with the Turkish Special Forces right there with them.
So things really starting to kick off then. How is the FSA, the Free Syrian Army and Turkish troops approaching the local population? Because of course there are many people who live in these areas, so surely there does have to be some sort of discussion.
That's absolutely very important on how the Free Syrian Army is working with local villagers and local community leaders. We saw some very interesting footage as the first villages were being liberated by the Free Syrian Army, of Free Syrian Army field commanders speaking to villagers, speaking to the community, telling them that your homes are your homes, your villages are your villages. We are here to protect you. We are not here to oppress you. We are not going to mistreat anyone. So we're seeing at least some very positive signs that as the Free Syrian Army advances, that they are sticking to their word and sticking to the objectives of this Operation Olive Branch to liberate the populace from the oppression of the YPG. And that positive treatment of the locals is an absolutely crucial part of a counterinsurgency campaign. You can fight on the battlefield and you can defeat the terrorists on the battlefield, but ultimately you have to gain the confidence of the local populace, and we're seeing the Free Syrian Army do that as they advance.
And I guess also it's the playing out of what the Turkish side is saying, and that we're not attacking Kurds, we're attacking terrorists and liberating the local population. I want to talk a little bit about, is this the carving up of Syria that Turkey's allies are so worried about?
Well, just yesterday, the Turkish foreign minister reiterated that the objectives, that the political and strategic objectives of Turkey here is to return the area back to the local populace, the Arabs, the Turkmen, and the Kurds that are from Afrin. This is to show that the YPG and the PKK terror group in Afrin is not part of the community. It's essentially, it was there forced upon the locals. So that's another important factor here, is that to show that the Turkish armed forces and the Free Syrian Army allies are not foreign oppressors, that they're not here to occupy, but that they're to liberate. And that's an important contrast, for example, to other areas in the Syrian conflict where we've seen the Iranians bring in foreign militias from Iraq and Afghanistan, Shia militias on the ground. So that aspect, to return the Afrin back to the local populace, is going to be an important part of this campaign, and that message, I think, is being heard loud and clear as the Free Syrian Army and the Turkish Special Forces move forward into Afrin.
Thanks so much for that analysis. That's TRT World's very own Oubai Shahbandar.